Hello again. I'm Laurie, Lane-Zucker, founder and CEO of Impact Entrepreneur, and we are taping interviews here at the SOCAP conference, the largest impact investing conference in the world. And I'm really excited to introduce two people to you now. Bob Caruso, who is the chairman of Intentional Media, and Kate Byrne, who is the president of Intentional Media. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Now, I hear little birdie in the rafters told me that you have some connection to the SOCAP conference other than being attendees at this wonderful event. Is that true?
One might say we actually own this fabulous entity.
Okay. Well, Bob, as chairman, tell me about how long Intentional Media has been involved with SOCAP and what you're doing with the conference and all the other things that Intentional Media does around the conference.
Yeah, so we were so fortunate to, should I be looking there? We were so fortunate either way to know the SOCAP founders for years, and we're so appreciative of what they've built. It was so incredible. And we had the chance 2.5 years ago to buy it from them and to take it to the next stage, because obviously on every continent, this is the topic of conversation, right? How are people investing and running their companies with greater sense of purpose and mission? And then as we got into the event business, we realized there's a much bigger opportunity than just what SOCAP did, to reach different demographics and different audiences, and to have a media and event business that was focused on hitting all those different areas. So we launched Intentional Media about 1.5 years ago, and then quickly realized that I was over my skis because I don't have a media or event business, and we were fortunate enough to find Kate and hire Kate as president of Intentional Media, and she's been with us about 8 months.
Quickly, what is your background then, if it's not media and conferences?
I was in the hedge fund investment business for a long time, and then in 2008 I got involved in impact investing, and I've been an active impact investor for the last 11 years.
So Kate, I can imagine, tell me if I'm wrong, but there's kind of I would feel a deep sense of kind of responsibility, if not burdened by, if I suddenly came under the control of the world's largest impact investing conference, and one, but more importantly than that, one that is really seen by people who are deepest in the impact investing movement, which is very, growing very fast, as really the most, the important gathering in the space, and has been for years now, to kind of take up the reins as president and to maintain that sense of kind of importance and proprietary within the core community, but also to grow the conference, grow the demographic, grow the audience for this crucially important work we're doing in the world. Would that be fair assessment?
Well, thank God I've got broad shoulders, but so Bob had mentioned that we had actually purchased 2 other entities, and this was very purposeful. I should say it was very intentional. So we realized we look at the world through an intentionality funnel. On the one side, we've got the converted. That's SOCAP, right? Those are the people that have been active. They were early mover, first mover advantage. Then we've got the curious, and those are the folks that are begun to dabble in it, but trying to figure out what they can do. So Conscious Company from a leadership standpoint, and Total Impact, who is the third brand that we have that really works with the traditional financial practitioners in effort to frankly mainstream impact investing. That's where they step in. And then on the other end, we've got the agnostic. Those aren't naysayers, but they're definitely people that are trying to figure out, is there a there? This is where we're really starting to see a lot of interest, both from the traditionals who are not in the large banks, who haven't been as involved, but more importantly, from the corporates. And with the Business Roundtable, who just finally had said, oh my gosh, it isn't just the shareholder return, it's actually a purpose that matters as well. So all that together is really helping us move more people up that intentionality funnel, which means that they're all then moving and becoming and widening the tent and the campfire, if you will, that we know as SOCAP.
I've spent a bit of time going back and forth. I'm based on the East Coast, but in Seattle, and I know that at least for 2 years running, there's been a SOCAP mini summit. I don't. You probably call it a summit rather than a conference there in Seattle. Is that part of a kind of a longer-term growth strategy for SOCAP to do kind of more regional gatherings like that?
Yes, definitely. One of the things and the biggest gap that we see is that there is so much work being done at the local level and at the regional level. So that's part of our SOCAP 365 that is most likely going to morph into something that we're calling intentional SOCAP cities, where we'll be dropping into different cities and helping, especially basing upon the crowd that we have here, to serve as ambassadors, if you will, that can really start getting corporates, nonprofits, for-profits, academicians, and governments all involved in the conversation, so we can continue all the great work that takes place here at SOCAP, but make sure that you could have it 365 days a year.
So, Bob, am I right to pick up that the goal there with 365 is not so much to establish permanent bases in these cities, but to, as you say, rove and move around? Can you kind of describe that a little further, that strategy?
Yeah, I think it's new, so we're still trying to figure out what's optimal. I think there's a lot of great conversations that happen outside of the coasts, and how do we engage those communities, especially with opportunity zones, on all the great work that all these regional players are doing. So I think we're trying to figure out, do we want to continue to build bigger presence in these other cities, or do we want to keep rotating it? I think it's still to be determined. I think in certain locales where we have a strong community and a strong base like Seattle, I think we'll, go back perennially. But then we may continue, like the circus, have the
tent rotate.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what was I going to say? What comes next right after this conference? What do you focus on other than taking a big deep breath?
So with regards to SOCAP, we start immediately going right on in and talking about next year's SOCAP, as well as we've got the SOCAP 365s that are coming up, and our Spectrum event, which we had done in partnership with Kellogg and also Prudential, which is aimed at the getting more funding into the hands of founders of color. But we've also then got our Total Impact programs that are happening in November and December, and then Conscious Company has World Changing Women Summit that starts in January. So what we've now got is a nice steady rhythm, a cadence, if you will, of opportunities to have in-person experiences. But then, of course, feathered upon that are our monthly podcasts that each brand has, as well as newsletters. So we really do our best to try and reach people where they're at and deliver the content in the places that they like, in the way they like to get it.
What about internationally? You've got a lot of international people at this conference. I've done interviews with several people from Korea, Australia. Really, it's truly international. In terms of that 365 approach, how international is that at the moment, and do you have aspirations to grow that aspect of the work too?
We have to grow internationally for sure. I think our strategy is looking at, we don't want to be the ugly Americans that parachute into the local region and say, oh, we're so smart, let us tell you about all the great stuff we do in the U.S., because having all those local partners, all the local knowledge, there could be language issues, is really, really important to be credible. So we have several players, one of them is GSG, that we're partnering with their event. Hopefully that still happens in Chile in November, where we'll be bringing SOCAP to Chile during that GSG event. And there's a few other players we're looking at in South America about partnering with pre-existing businesses that are already doing great events, that how can we bring some of our skills and our know-how and expertise of running these events to their regions.
And I think the other thing, if I might build on that too, is that we mentioned that SOCAP was such an early mover, right? And it's got such gravitas. So how can we use our gravitas to help these others who are trying to really help the movement grow? So how can we help give them a little bit of our fairy dust, as it were?
So the world doesn't need another conference.
Right.
There's a lot of conferences. So one of the big initiatives that Kate and I have been doing over the last year is how do we develop much deeper partnerships with people that are already doing great work in the field? How do we collaborate better? How do we produce things better rather than recreating and competing with people that are already doing good work already?
Well, I'm certainly of that mindset too. As we talk about both international connections and expansion of the work internationally, I was listening to what you were saying. I was thinking of the Impact Hub network, which is based in, the main hub is in Europe, and they've got over 100 kind of independently owned branded hubs. They seem, from my conversations with quite a few of them, to certainly be mission synergistic, but needing lots of resources in terms of intellectual resources. And that, have you had any conversations with individual hubs or the Impact Hub network?
Certainly done some events at the hubs, like the event in Seattle's at the Seattle hub. We've done an event in Austin at the Austin hub. When DC had a hub, we did some events down there. But other than that, we haven't had any other
Deeper conversation.
Yeah, any deeper conversation.
Right. Well, okay. Last question. Do you have dates for next year's SOCAP yet?
We do.
You happen to know them?
I do. I want to say it's the 20th to the 25th,
That's
October
exactly
20th to
what it
25th.
is.
So roughly the same week.
Yeah, it's always this week.
Same week. Okay. So, yeah. And you were close to filling this one up? Did you fill it up in the end, or?
Pretty doggone close. We've got over 3,200 people here.
3,200. Wow. I remember when I first came, it was closer to 1,000. So, boy, that's growth.
It's just a testament to how many people are getting more involved in this, which is really our true north is how can we make this how everyone lives?
Well, given that you are close to filling up, if not filling up, I recommend that people start thinking about next year now if you're interested in coming. So anyway, it really is a wonderful, absolutely very rich gathering, and I think for those who will be able to watch the interviews that I've done, they'll find in what people have said just how much they value this conference.
The woman, Lindsay Smalling, who runs and curates the whole event, is absolutely incredible, and the power that this small but mighty team has to pull all this off and to make sure it's incredibly inclusive and to bring all the different audiences and perspectives to it is really remarkable. Like, they're an incredibly talented group of people.
Yeah, in past work, I've organized quite a lot of conferences, and I just know I do fewer of them now because I know how much is involved. Anyway, thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time out. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.